If you think you need a big backyard to compost, I'm about to prove you wrong. I live in an apartment with a small balcony, and for the longest time I felt guilty every time I threw away coffee grounds, eggshells, and vegetable peels. I knew they could become food for my plants, but I had no idea how to make compost without space, a fancy bin, or annoying my neighbors. So today, I decided to challenge myself. In just 30 minutes, I'm turning this tiny balcony into a fully functioning mini compost station. Before I set a timer, I gathered everything I already had around the apartment. I grabbed a sturdy plastic storage bin with a lid, plus a second shallow container to catch any extra liquid. I collected a pile of brown materials like torn cardboard, shredded paper, and dry leaves I had swept off the balcony earlier in the week. From the kitchen, I brought a bowl of green scraps, coffee grounds, vegetable peels, and a few crushed eggshells. I didn't buy anything new for this setup, and that was important to me. I wanted to show that composting on a balcony can be simple, low-cost, and beginner-friendly. By the way, if you're already getting ideas for your own balcony while you watch this, take a second to tap like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps more apartment and small space gardeners find this kind of content, and it tells me to keep making step-by-step balcony transformations like this one. Once everything was laid out, I started the clock. The first thing I did was turn my basic plastic bin into a mini compost system. I used a drill, but you can use a heated nail or screwdriver if you're careful. I made small holes across the bottom of the bin for drainage, then added a few holes along the sides near the top for airflow. The goal wasn't to create giant gaps, just enough for the compost to breathe and for extra moisture to escape. This is the secret to keeping your compost from becoming a smelly, soggy mess on a small balcony. Next, I placed the drilled bin into the second shallow container, creating a simple two-bin system. The top bin would hold all the composting materials, and the bottom would catch any liquid that drained out. That liquid, often called compost tea, can actually be diluted and used as a gentle fertilizer later, so I wasn't worried about it going to waste. With my compost station assembled, it was time to start building the actual pile inside. I started with a fluffy layer of brown materials at the bottom of the bin. I tore cardboard into small pieces, added shredded paper, and tossed in a few dry leaves. This layer helps absorb moisture and keeps the compost light and airy, which is especially important in a tight container. On top of that, I sprinkled in my first layer of green materials, those coffee grounds from the morning, the onion ends, carrot peels, and bits of lettuce that were past their prime. I spread them out evenly so nothing clumped together. From there, I kept alternating layers, a handful of greens, like kitchen scraps, followed by a generous layer of browns, like cardboard or dry leaves. Every time I added something wet, I made sure to cover it with something dry. On a small balcony, this is what keeps smells under control and insects away. I gently mixed some of the layers together with my hand trowel to introduce air without compacting everything. The mix looked surprisingly neat and tidy, not at all like the big messy compost piles you see in large gardens. Within about 15 minutes, the bin was already a working compost system. I paused for a moment and thought about my neighbors. This balcony is close to other apartments, so odor and pests were my biggest worries when I first considered composting. To solve that, I finished by adding one last thick layer of brown materials on top, almost like putting a blanket over the scraps. From the outside, you couldn't even see any food waste, just cardboard and leaves. I placed the lid on loosely, leaving it slightly ajar at one corner so air could still flow, but flies and rain would stay out. With the bin ready, I turned my attention to where it would live on the balcony. I chose a spot along the wall, away from direct harsh sun but not in deep shade. Too much sun can dry the compost out quickly, especially in a shallow container, while too much shade can slow things down. I wanted it close enough to the balcony door that I could easily step out with a small container of scraps every day. Once I found the perfect spot, I slid the bin into place and stepped back. In under half an hour, the empty corner of my balcony had turned into a discreet, efficient compost station. Then I set up one final piece of the system, my scrap bowl inside the kitchen. I grabbed a small container with a lid and placed it on the counter, right next to where I usually cook. Every time I peel vegetables, crack eggs, or scoop out coffee grounds, they go straight into that bowl instead of the trash. Once a day, I carry that bowl out to the balcony, lift the compost bin lid, bury the scraps under the brown layer, and add a little more cardboard or paper if things look too wet. It takes less than a minute and it has completely changed the way I think about waste. What amazes me most is how quickly the transformation begins. After just a week or two, I can already feel the compost warming slightly when I dig down a bit, and some of the scraps start losing their original shape. Over time, everything breaks down into a dark, crumbly material that smells like a forest floor, not garbage. That finished compost goes straight into my balcony containers, feeding herbs, lettuce, tomatoes, and flowers. My plants respond with deeper green leaves, stronger growth, and better harvests, all thanks to what used to be trash. So now, when I stand on this balcony, I don't just see a small outdoor space. I see a tiny ecosystem, where my kitchen waste becomes food for the soil, and the soil feeds the plants that feed me. All it took was one storage bin, a few holes, some cardboard, and the decision to try. If this inspired you to start your own mini compost station, or gave you ideas for using your balcony in a new way, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next small space garden project. And comment below and tell me what kind of space you have to work with and whether you're going to try balcony composting, because I'd love to hear your ideas and maybe feature some of them in a future video.